Have you ever sat alone, your heart pounding with a brilliant idea, only to never start? You know you want to change, you want freedom, you want to live a different life, but day after day, you remain trapped by the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of being laughed at. How many times have you promised yourself you'd start when you're ready, only to find years have passed and you're still in the exact same place? If you've ever felt that, you'll understand why the book Do Weekend was a wake-up call for millions. It's not a 10-step guide to success or a promise of a rosy future. It's a collection of real experiences where the author, Noah Kagan, dissects every wound, the hesitation, the procrastination, the humiliation of rejection, and how to turn it all into the fuel for action. I've watched my students transform because of this simple challenge. One shy young woman, after daring to ask for a coffee discount, found the courage to ask for a raise and got it. A young man dared to knock on an investor's door with a crazy idea and received his first check. You can continue to procrastinate, letting fear keep you in a box for years to come. Or you can start today. The only question left is, what will you choose? Thank you for taking the time for this video. I know that right now, you might be feeling a sense of restlessness. You want to change, you want to live freely, you want to create something of your own. But you're held back by the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, or simply the fear of not being good enough. And if you've ever felt that way, then this video is for you. I'm going to tell you about a journey, one that isn't glamorous or easy, but is brutally honest. A journey that anyone can start, including you. So, I propose you set a goal of being rejected. Call it a rejection goal. For example, aim to hear no 20 times in 1 week. And when you hit that number, celebrate it like a victory. Because every rejection moves you closer to an unexpected yes. If you ask 100 times and get rejected 90 times, you still have 10 open doors. Success doesn't lie in your cleverness, but in the number of times you dare to knock. I remember trying the coffee challenge in a small shop in Japan. The employee bowed politely and said they'd never had a customer ask for a discount before. I smiled, expecting a no, but after a brief discussion, they nodded. We will give you 10% off because you are brave enough to ask for something no one else has. I walked out with a coffee that was a few hundred yen cheaper, but the feeling I took with me was worth 100 times more. Life rewards courage. Maybe you think this is just a childish game, but ask yourself, when was the last time you asked for something truly difficult? Apologizing to someone you hurt, asking for an opportunity you felt you didn't deserve, asking someone to listen to an idea you've been nursing. If it's been too long, the coffee challenge is no longer a game. It's the medicine you need. We enter the world with a fear of rejection, as if it's a final verdict. But in reality, rejection is just a comma. It forces you to pause, but it doesn't end the story. The more no's you hear, the stronger you become. Conversely, if you've never been rejected, you are more fragile than ever. I've met many young entrepreneurs with big dreams who died a slow death in coffee shops because they only drew up spreadsheets and never dared to open their mouths to ask a potential customer, "Would you buy this?" And so, the idea dies. Not because it was bad, but because its creator didn't dare let it face the real world. A friend of mine named Chris proved the opposite. He wanted to sell t-shirts with unique designs. Instead of scrambling for funding, he went out onto the street with a few designs printed on paper. He stopped passers-by, held up a design, and asked, "Would you want to buy this? If so, I'll have it made and delivered to you next week." Most people said no, but some nodded, wrote down their names, left their phone numbers, and paid up front. In a single afternoon, Chris had his first orders. From a few paper printouts, he built a beloved t-shirt brand. When I asked him, "Weren't you afraid of being rejected?" he smiled and said, "Of course, but I'd rather hear 10 no's to find one yes than sit around imagining forever." That is the power of daring to ask. It not only builds courage, but also opens the door to reality. Instead of guessing, you let the world give you an answer. And the world, though harsh, is always honest. I once tried a 30-day game. Every day, I had to ask for something difficult. From asking for a first-class seat on a plane, to asking for a tour of a restricted building, to asking for a private chat with a celebrity. Most of the time, I was rejected. Sometimes even looked at like I was crazy. But occasionally, a surprising door would open. I once asked to see the kitchen of a famous restaurant, and they agreed. I got to witness the chaotic, vibrant world behind a door normally reserved for staff. And I understood. Many impossible things are only impossible because we haven't dared to ask. People often protest, "I don't want to bother anyone. I don't want to be looked down upon." But those layers of hesitation are the very walls you need to break down. Because behind them lies a freer, richer life. Remember, the goal isn't to get what you ask for. The goal is to train your tolerance for rejection, to become more comfortable with asking. When you dare to ask, you take back control. Instead of letting life decide for you, you initiate. And sometimes, the world will surprise you by nodding yes. The day I was fired from Facebook, my whole world came crashing down. I was just a mid-level employee, and that afternoon, as I walked out of the office with a cardboard box in my hands, no one saw me off, and no one promised to call. I felt like a pathetic failure, but it was that very humiliation that forced me to realize a harsh truth. There is never a right time to start. You either do it, or you don't. The most meticulous plan can shatter in a second. Only action, however clumsy, can pull you out of the swamp of hesitation. I call it the now, not how principle. Don't ask how, just do it now. One of my students, after daring to ask for a coffee discount, found the courage to propose to her boyfriend. The strange thing was, he had been planning to propose too, but kept procrastinating. Her proposal made him laugh and say yes immediately. If she hadn't dared to ask, they both might have missed the most beautiful moment of their lives. Stories like that convince me of one thing. Your future doesn't lie in what you know, but in what you dare to ask. There's a paradox few people realize. We spend our youth learning how to avoid mistakes, yet every great achievement grows from the soil of mistakes. Smart people often get stuck in a disease called infinite preparation. They read one book after another, attend course after course, conference after conference, but never dare to step into the real world. They fear failure, without realizing that procrastination is the biggest failure of all. I used to be like that. The day I was fired from Facebook, I thought my future had vanished. But then I realized that losing that comfortable chair gave me the opportunity to begin. Freedom isn't far away. It starts with your freedom number. Not $1 million, not luxury, but just enough to no longer feel trapped. Maybe it's just rent, food, and a little for fun. Knowing that number means you're already holding the key to your own escape. But how do you take that first step if you're still afraid? This is where the muscle of asking becomes your companion. Imagine this. Most of us walk through life on tiptoes, afraid of what others think, afraid of judgment, afraid of confrontation. And in doing so, we lose our own lives. Every time you ask, every time you're rejected, It's like lifting a weight for your soul. It's heavy at first, but gradually you get stronger. A student once told me, "I wish I had your courage." I laughed. No one is born courageous. I also trembled and blushed when I asked for my first coffee discount. The only difference is that I did it again. Courage is not a gift. It's a muscle you train. And when you combine two things, starting now and daring to ask, you hold the keys to countless doors. Just imagine a world where everyone lived like this. How many dead ideas would be revived? How many buried dreams would be unearthed? How many wasted talents would finally shine? That world isn't so far away. It begins with each individual who dares to act, who dares to ask. For example, if you have an idea for a restaurant, instead of writing a 50-page business plan, go to the market, buy some ingredients, cook a few dishes for your neighbors, and ask, "Would you pay for this?" If they say yes, you have customers. If they say no, you've learned something more valuable than any plan. Real feedback. Many people say, "I'm not ready." I'll be blunt, you will never be ready. And that's the whole point. Act in your unreadiness, just like a sculptor who starts with a rough block of stone. The masterpiece only emerges when you pick up the chisel and make the first cut. This first part of the journey isn't just a call to start or to ask. It's an awakening, freedom, creativity, success. It all begins with initial clumsiness and the world's headshake. Only when you accept that can you truly become a creator. And strangely, once you get past that initial stage, you'll care less about the outcome. Failure is no longer a tragedy. It's just part of the game. The opinions of others are no longer a prison, but just a fleeting reaction. You step out into the world, and at that moment, you are truly free. Instead of dreaming about a polished website, call a potential customer today. Instead of waiting for a production line, sell what you can make in your own kitchen. When I started my own business after the Facebook fall, I had no capital and no special skills. I only had fear and the decision to try. And I realized what holds us back isn't a lack of ideas, but the invisible chains of fearing rejection. Imagine a typical morning. You walk into your usual coffee shop, the rich aroma of coffee filling the air, the steady sound of the grinder humming. The barista smiles, "What can I get for you today?" And you, with a voice that might be trembling but is firm, reply, "I'd like to ask for a 10% discount on this coffee." In that instant, the world seems to stop. The barista stares, blood rushes to your face, and your heart thumps against your ribs. A part of your brain screams, "I'm crazy. Why would I put myself in such an embarrassing situation?" But that very moment is the exercise. The coffee challenge isn't about saving a few cents. It's about confronting rejection and shattering the shell of shame that has held you back for so long. Someone once asked me, "Why coffee? Why not something more important?" I just smiled. It's precisely because it's small that you dare to try. And when you dare with the small things, you build the capacity to tackle the big ones. I once challenged a group of students. One stammered so much he forgot to order. Another was flatly rejected. One lucky person actually got the discount. But the important thing wasn't the result. It was the look in their eyes afterward. A look of enlightenment, realizing, "Oh, a no didn't kill me, didn't." From there, I introduced the concept of the rejection goal. Instead of setting a goal for how many times you succeed, set a goal for how many times you get rejected. It sounds paradoxical, but it's incredibly liberating. If your goal is 10 rejections in a month, then every time you hear no, you can celebrate because you're one step closer to your target. Suddenly, failure becomes an ally, not an enemy. Think about it. If you ask for a meeting, a partnership, or a contract and get a no under the old logic, you'd be disappointed. But with the new logic, you smile because you've made progress. Every no makes you tougher and paves the way for unexpected yeses. I have a long list of headshakes in my life, projects that were laughed at, ideas that were dismissed, requests that were denied, and I'm grateful for all of them. Because of them, I learned to separate my emotions from the outcome. Because of them, I found the strength to keep asking, keep trying, keep starting. If you look back on your own life, you'll see that most of your regrets aren't about the things you did, but the things you didn't dare to do. Not daring to ask, not daring to try, not daring to start. Those are the scars that ache the most. That's why this section is a call to smash those invisible walls. The fear of failure, the shame of rejection, and the illusion of perfect preparation. Remember, starting something isn't an act of genius. It's the act of someone willing to be a fool for a moment. Every empire began with a tiny step. Amazon started in a garage selling books. Airbnb started with a few air mattresses. Starbucks started as one tiny shop. They were once clumsy and doubted, but they started, and that's why they exist. You are the same. You don't need to wait any longer. You can start today with one small step. Ask for $1, ask for a coffee discount, or simply share your idea with a friend. It will make you tremble, but it will also make you feel alive. It will bring you rejection, but it will also grant you freedom. Most importantly, it will pull you out of hibernation and reawaken the creative instinct you've had since you were a child. Think about the last time you hesitated before a closed door. It wasn't because you didn't know how to knock. It was because a chorus of questions echoed in your head. What if they say no? Am I good enough? Does anyone even care? That is the real prison. And there's only one way to break free. Knock on the door. After you've stepped out of your shell of fear and dared to begin, the next big question will inevitably arise. What will people pay for? Everyone has ideas. Friends might get excited, and family might offer encouraging nods, but all the praise and social media likes in the world won't pay your bills. The only thing that proves your idea has value is someone pulling out their wallet. I used to think that to create a good product, I needed months, even years, of research to perfect every detail. But then I realized all those plans, drafts, and sketches are meaningless if no one is willing to pay for them. And the harsh truth is, most of us start by guessing. We think people will need this, or think they'll like that. We pour our time and energy into building it, only to find out that nobody cares. So, the smartest move is to reverse the process. Don't build it and then sell it. Sell it and then build it. See if people care enough to pay first. The simplest way to start is by listening. You don't need to invent something completely new. Just pay attention to the everyday annoyances around you. Every time someone complains, that's gold. I wish there was something for this. I hate doing that. I'm so tired of... These are all signals of opportunity. I have a friend who works in an office. She often complained about lunch options, greasy food, few healthy choices. So, she started making a few salads in boxes and selling them at her company. At first, only a couple of colleagues bought them for fun, but then word spread. A few weeks later, her entire floor was placing orders. No fancy storefront, no huge marketing budget, just solving a small but real pain point. And when the pain is real, people are willing to pay. But how do you choose a viable idea from a sea of options? This is where your freedom number acts as a compass. Let's say your minimum living cost is $1,500 a month. Your initial goal isn't a billion-dollar startup. It's generating a $1,500 income stream from your idea. That number is enough to buy back your freedom. It turns a vague dream into a measurable goal. When you have a clear number, it's easier to evaluate which ideas are feasible. A homemade food delivery service in your neighborhood could quickly bring in 30 customers a month. But a mobile app might need hundreds of thousands of users. That's out of reach for now. And here's the key. Starting a business isn't about proving you're a genius. It's about reclaiming control over your life. Once you have an idea, you need to find your perfect customer. Not everyone. The more you generalize, the more you'll fail. Narrow it down as much as possible. If you teach dieting, don't advertise to everyone who wants to lose weight. Target new moms who want to lose baby weight quickly without affecting their breastfeeding. When you do that, you speak their language, touch their specific pain, and stand out. Your perfect customer base doesn't need to be huge. They just need to be real and willing to pay. The first few dozen customers are enough to get you started, and they will be the ones to help you refine your product and inspire you to keep going. At this point, you have 3 pieces of the puzzle. I often tell my students about a concept I call the freedom number. It's not $1 million or some extravagant dream. It's simply the amount of money you need each month to live a life where you no longer feel suffocated. For me, when I sat down and did the math, that number was only about $2,000, far less than the giant worries I had imagined. By just selling a few small services or some handmade products, I could live more freely than I thought. And you can too. Try it right now. Write down all your essential monthly expenses. You'll be stunned to realize that freedom is cheaper than you think. An idea born from an annoyance. Your freedom number to filter it. Your perfect customer to target. The final piece, and the most brutal test, is to find a way to get real customers as soon as possible. Many people worry, my product isn't finished, I don't have a website, I don't have a logo. These are all just excuses for procrastination. In reality, the only thing you need is a signal from the market. Someone is willing to pay. If you can get a stranger to pay for something you've only promised, that's powerful proof you're on the right track. Conversely, if you can't, it doesn't matter if you spend another 6 months polishing it. The result will be the same. There are hundreds of ways to sell before you build. Write a Facebook post with a price, hand out flyers in your neighborhood, send an email to a few contacts. The important thing is to create a real transaction. A buyer gives you money, and you have a responsibility to deliver, even if it's just a basic version. The feeling of receiving that first dollar for your own idea is like an electric current shooting down your spine. It's not just money. It's proof that you've just bent reality, turning an idea in your head into tangible value. I remember the moment I received my first payment notification email. The amount was only enough for a nice meal, but it made me tremble. It proved that a stranger trusted me enough to give me their most precious resource, their hard-earned money. If you've never sold anything, remember this: your first customer is more important than anything else. More important than your logo, your website, or the marketing strategy in your head. Because the moment someone pulls out their wallet, your idea is no longer a dream. It has entered the real world. But that journey is always filled with fear. You're afraid of being rejected, of being laughed at, of your product not being good enough. So you find a dozen reasons to delay. You need more research, a better design. You need to wait until you're ready. But the truth is, you will never be ready. The only way to overcome fear is to walk right into it. Call a potential customer, post a sales ad on social media, hand out flyers, and face the indifferent stares. Each time, you learn something new and get one step closer to that first yes. I once advised a friend who wanted to teach public speaking skills. She was worried that no one knew who she was. I told her, try messaging 10 people you know and offer them a trial coaching session at a discount. She was terrified, but she did it. The result? 3 people agreed to pay on the spot. In less than 24 hours, she had her first real customers. But knowing the number isn't enough. The primal fear of failure, of humiliation, still holds you back. That's why I created a challenge, the $1 challenge. Try asking someone you know for $1. Sounds ridiculous, right? But it forces you to swallow your ego and accept the possibility of rejection. I did it. My friend laughed, then handed me a coin, and I realized failure doesn't kill you. On the contrary, it sets you free. Every time you dare to ask, dare to try, a crack appears in the wall of fear, and the light starts to shine through. When someone pays you, you instantly become a different person. You're no longer a dreamer. You are now obligated to deliver on time, to satisfy them, to keep your word. You step into the mindset of an entrepreneur, not a daydreamer. That first customer doesn't demand perfection. They don't need a polished product. What they need is a solution to a real problem. So, don't be afraid to sell while you're still laying the foundation. Sell to validate. If they buy, you have a legitimate reason to continue. If nobody buys, you've just saved yourself months of wasted effort. Most people think selling early is risky, but in reality, waiting for perfection before selling is the most dangerous move. You could spend 6 months building a fantastic app, launch it to crickets, and lose everything. In contrast, if you try to sell on day 1 and realize no one is interested, you've only lost an afternoon. This is the true meaning of building in this book. It's not about building big and beautiful. It's about building the smallest possible thing needed to test the market. A simple landing page, a handmade product sample, a demo video. Just enough to validate. If people pull out their wallets, you're on the right track. I call this the first spark. Like a small flame on a cold night. Fragile, but with the potential to grow into a wildfire. Your only job is to keep it from going out. Take care of each customer. Listen to their feedback and improve bit by bit. Your first customer will become the story you tell for the rest of your life. They are the proof of belief, the first brick in your house of freedom. And you must remember, no one else can take that first step for you. I used to play a game with myself. Every time I thought about starting a business, I'd imagine needing $1 million or 10 million just to begin. And that game kept me from ever starting, because the finish line was just too far away. Then I discovered a secret. Freedom doesn't require a mountain of cash. It just requires one manageable number. The freedom number. Try calculating it. How much do you need to live comfortably each month? Not lavishly, just enough to not feel suffocated. Maybe it's $2,000. That's your first goal. Not $1 million, just $2,000. When you shrink the dream down, it becomes an achievable target. And when you reach it, your entire perspective changes. You realize you can support yourself outside of a traditional job. You start to have choices. I once sat with a high-earning software engineer who was always exhausted. I feel like I'm trapped in a box, he said. When we calculated it, his freedom number was only a quarter of his current salary. Just one small side project would be enough. He tried freelancing, and after only 2 months, he hit his freedom number. The look in his eyes was a mixture of shock and excitement. He was no longer talking about millions. He was talking about the power of choice. When you have your freedom number, you see ideas through a completely different lens. You don't ask, could this be a massive success? You ask, could this get me closer to my freedom number? That simplicity pushes you to act instead of just dream. My father used to be a photocopier salesman, carrying his heavy bag of documents door to door to every office. I grew up witnessing cold shoulders and dismissive head shakes. As a child, I thought rejection was a wound, an insult. But as an adult, I realized it's what built his resilience, and he passed that on to me. Rejection is not your enemy. It is your companion. Every no brings you closer to a yes. The most dangerous thing isn't being rejected. It's not daring to ask and never knowing the answer could have been yes. But a number isn't enough. You need to know who will give you that money. This is where the concept of the perfect customer comes in. If you try to sell to the whole world, you'll be paralyzed. You won't know where to start. You'll try to please everyone, and you'll end up appealing to no one. The only way is to narrow your focus. The narrower, the better. Instead of saying, I teach English to everyone, say, I teach English to people preparing for a study abroad interview in the next 3 months. The second group is specific, urgent, and easy to find. When you speak to them, they feel like you're talking directly to them. I once coached a young woman starting an online fitness service. Initially, she said, I want to help women lose weight. Too broad. I asked, who is this woman specifically? After some thought, she said, I want to help exhausted and insecure new moms. That was the turning point. When she focused on that group, clients started flocking to her. That is the power of narrowing down. The more focused you are, the easier it is to sell. One right customer can be worth 10 wrong ones. Once you have your freedom number and your perfect customer, you have a map and a compass. All that's left is to take small steps. But the real game begins when you get your first customer. Because all the plans, branding, and drafts are meaningless until someone pulls out their wallet. Many people spend 6 months designing a logo, writing a 20-page business plan, and building a gorgeous website, all without a single sale. That is the black hole where dreams go to die. I worked with a startup team that wanted to create an income management app for freelancers. They talked about it for 4 months and even made a landing page, but they had never tried selling it to an actual freelancer. I dragged them to a coffee shop, found a real freelancer, pitched the idea, and asked, would you be willing to pay $10 to use the beta version? The freelancer agreed. The whole team was stunned, their eyes wide. They had just gotten their first customer. The lesson is clear. Your first customer doesn't need a perfect product. They need a solution to an urgent problem. If you hit the right pain point, they'll be willing to pay, even if the product is still raw. So, stop hiding behind endless preparations. Find one specific person, try to sell, listen to their feedback, adjust, and sell again. You will learn more from one customer than from a year of imagining. And when you get that first customer, something magical happens. The second and third customers become much easier to find. Of course, there will still be rejections, criticism, and indifference. But remember, rejection is not the end. It's proof that you're playing the real game. Every time you get rejected, you build resilience, a mental muscle essential for building anything of value. You don't need to think about thousands of customers. You just need the first few, enough to hit your freedom number. For instance, a woman started selling homemade snacks. At first, just one neighbor bought them, then another. Soon, the whole neighborhood was buying. After just 3 months, the money she earned equaled the factory salary she used to work all day for. When she realized she had the freedom to choose her own hours and take care of her kids, her eyes lit up. That is the success worth dreaming of. I call this the muscle of asking. Just like at the gym, you can't lift a weight once and expect to have muscles. You have to do it over and over until it becomes a reflex. To train this muscle, I created the coffee challenge. When you go to buy a coffee, look the barista straight in the eye and ask, "Can I have a 10% discount?" No reason needed. Just ask. Starting a business isn't for show, and it's not to prove how smart you are. It's to create freedom. And the first step is always getting a real customer. Once you have that first customer, something strange happens. The initial fear fades away, replaced by a new question. How do I double this or triple it? This is when you enter the growth phase. And the first step isn't complex marketing or advertising, it's selling like a human being. Many people cringe at the word sales, thinking of annoying cold calls, spam emails, and fake smiles. But the essence of selling is one of the most intimate forms of communication. You listen to a real person, talk about their problems, and then you offer a solution. When done right, it's not about forcing someone. It's like taking their hand and guiding them across a bridge to a better place. A great sales conversation isn't a presentation. It's a series of skillful questions. You let the customer articulate their own pain, identify their own desires, and then see for themselves that your product is the answer. I once watched a young man sell his online fitness coaching for the first time. He had prepared a whole script full of stats and images. But when he sat down with the client, he forgot everything. Instead of presenting, he just asked, "How has your health been lately?" The man started talking, complaining that he no longer had the energy to play with his kids, that his back hurt every morning. The coach just nodded, occasionally asking a follow-up question. In the end, the client said it himself, "I think I need someone to help me get my strength back." And the deal was signed. Unbelievably simple. One of the biggest fears in sales is hearing objections. "It's too expensive. I'm not sure I need this. Let me think about it." Many people shrink at this, apologize, and walk away. But the truth is, an objection isn't an ending. It's a sign of engagement. If they weren't interested at all, they would have just stayed silent. When they object, it means they're considering it, which means the door is still open. Instead of rushing to defend yourself, just listen calmly. Ask more. Which part doesn't seem like the right fit for you? When you show genuine interest, many customers will dismantle their own barriers. Sometimes, all they need is the reassurance that you'll be there to support them. And that's the real art of selling. It's not about talking more, but listening deeply. And don't forget, not everyone is your customer. Rejection is a natural part of the process. Instead of hoping everyone says yes, be grateful for the people who say no quickly. They save you time so you can focus on the people who are the right fit. Once you have customers, the next job is to turn them into loyal fans. This is the easiest way to grow. Retain old customers instead of just hunting for new ones. A happy customer not only buys again, but also refers you to others. They become your most powerful and free marketing channel. The method is simple. Keep your promises and exceed expectations. If you promise 7-day delivery, deliver in 5. If you promise a 1-hour coaching session, give them an extra 15 minutes. These small gestures create delightful surprises. People will talk about you. And a true brand is built on those word-of-mouth stories. Imagine the scene. Your hands might tremble, your heart will pound, your face will flush. It's not about the 10% off. It's because you're putting your ego on the line. And when the barista says no, you might feel awkward, but then you realize you're still alive. That is the antidote. After the first time, you'll try a second and a third. The moment you finally hear a yes, you'll understand. Life is more generous than you think. A topic many people avoid is pricing. They're afraid that a high price will scare away customers, so they constantly undervalue themselves. But the truth is, if you price too low, customers will doubt your quality. More importantly, you'll burn out trying to serve too many people for too little reward. Proper pricing is about setting a price that both you and your customer can respect. Don't just calculate your costs, calculate your value. If your service saves a client $50,000, then charging $5,000 is a bargain. Don't sell yourself short because of a lack of confidence. Price as if you believe in the value you provide, because it's the truth. At this point, you might think the journey is all about exciting, explosive moments, but the truth is, starting a business is also full of boring work. Sending reminder emails, checking invoices, handling difficult customers, tweaking tiny product details. No one tells you this, but it's these small, repetitive tasks that build the foundation. It's like going to the gym. Everyone loves the feeling of lifting heavy and taking photos to show off their muscles. But real muscle is built on the quiet days, with sweat dripping on the floor when no one is watching. Business is the same. You have to accept the boredom as part of the game. When you push through it, you build something that can last. And then, one day, you hit your freedom number. You look back. You're no longer dependent on your old job. You have customers. You have a sustainable income. An exhilarating sense of freedom washes over you. But at the same time, a strange void opens up. Now what? Many people dream that achieving freedom will lead to permanent happiness. But when the pressure of making a living is gone, you have to face a deeper question. How do I truly want to live? This is the greatest challenge of all. Some people stop, enjoy what they have, and are content. Others continue to expand, seeking bigger goals. There is no right answer. But one thing is certain. You are no longer trapped. You have the power to choose. And that is the ultimate prize this entire journey offers. If you're still hesitating, let me tell you this. You will never feel ready. And that's okay. You don't need more books, more plans, or more degrees. You just need to dare to take the first step. No matter how small, how clumsy, or how terrifying. Start by asking for $1, asking for a coffee discount, or sharing your idea with a friend. You will soon realize that rejection can't kill you. Failure won't end you. Every time you act, you become stronger. Then you'll sell before your product is perfect, find your first customer, hit your freedom number, and finally, hold freedom in your hands. The journey isn't easy, but every single step is worth it.